Hello, I'm back to streaming, perhaps. Maybe because it's the winter holiday. I haven't recorded a league in about, 7-8 months maybe. And back then I was playing a duelist. And now I think I have a couple of different directions to take this list. So I thought I'll just briefly discuss the different versions I'm thinking of my list. So this is like a most list or just like a creature mid-range or control list, whatever you want to call it. There's not a lot of most elements in the deck now because I'm not playing a lot of tutors. I think the format is so aggressive, I think, that you don't really have much time to play with tutors. You want more high impact cards directly. And also I'm not sure, I don't know which cards I would want to tutor for usually. Like most of the time what you really want is a spell seeker to get Swords to Plowshares so you can answer your opponent's Murktide or Barrogoyf. Or you need a counterspell, perhaps, or a Witherbloom command to answer whatever permanent there is, like Steel Cutter, or Up the Beanstalk. Or you need like Test of Talents. I like it if you're gonna answer Show and Tell or Doomsday, or maybe a Thoughtseize against some combo decks, right? So Spellseeker is like the only card the only tutor I typically want. Now this list, I had a 5-0 league with this list. Which felt quite lucky actually. Opponents giving up easily. I had a bit of luck in those matches, but I guess in my earlier leagues I've lost games where I felt like I was really close, so it doesn't feel undeserved. So in this list, let's see, what was I playing here? Yeah, I was trying Meteor Sword because I saw that in Death and Taxes, and Death and Taxes is a deck that's really good at adopting, like many people are playing it, and it made a lot of sense, I think, because you really want to be able to answer Planar Nexus, Cloud Post, cards like this, and also in the fair matchups. I mean, in the fair matchups that are land based, you really want to blow up their land, and if you have Philia to flicker it, that could be a really good nail in the coffin from turn 3, 4 maybe, I guess. And if your opponent is playing a aggressive creature deck, then you really want to blow up their Barrogoyf or Tami or Murktide. So it's just an all-around really good card. I could see myself playing like 4 Stoneforge, 2 Meteor Swords, maybe Flicker Wisp, but I didn't go that far for it. So in this league, I put into Up the Beanstalk. I don't think I drew them a single time during this league, so that didn't matter too much. What else? I'm playing a mix of discard, Force of Will, and removal to try to have a well-rounded interaction suite. I really went lower on Graveyard Interaction. There's only like the Keen-Eyed Curator in the main deck for Graveyard Interaction, but I'm playing 7 basics. So I'm pretty insulated against loam shenanigans, unless they're loaming their wastelands and threats, like Ursa Saga. So that's, of course, a problem. Philia can answer their tokens from the Saga, though. Solitude, Swords. Yeah, I don't think there's that much more to speak about here. I guess the main thing I realized after this was that I was playing Sanctum Prelate in the sideboard because I figured it's a game over if you name 3 versus Show and Tell decks, and it's game over, not game over, but it's maybe game over depending on the build when you play it on endgame 3 against Doomsday. But then I saw in the Espewild Discord they were discussing Meddling Mage. I realized that Meddling Mage does the same thing essentially, but for 2 mana and being blue, so you can pitch it to Forcible. So I swapped those for Meddling Mages, and I started putting Meddling Mage in the main deck of my list. So anyway, so this is like, this list is quite nice. It has very high interaction. I was winning a lot against Blue-Black Tempo. I think I had 3-0 matches against Blue-Black Tempo in a row. So it was really good against Blue-Black Tempo because you can always find more removal, like Stoneforge lets you grind out things, Batterskull, Preformal Wear, Cryptic Coat, even more grindy, and you have the swords. I would lose sometimes against Safekeeper, like Elvish Reclaimer Safekeeper, and I just throw all my removal on it, and they still manage to find more lands with the Flagstones of Trocaire. So like Witherbloom Command can answer Safekeeper, incidentally, you might say. Orchid Bowmaster also pressures it, so there's like 4 extra removal, and it's already a removal-heavy deck when playing against the Safekeeper, but still you can't get it out off the board in game 1, so you kind of need a sweeper as well. So I guess I could try to find some main deckable answer to Safekeeper that might help the deck a little bit. And also adding the Meddling Mages could help a lot. Like a really sweet thing about Meddling Mage is if you're playing against an Eldrazi deck or one of the Cloud Post or Turbo Forge or Blue Post decks, playing Meddling Mage and naming Kozilek's command makes it really difficult for your opponent to cast their commands, and they don't play that much removal usually. Like they could play what's it called? Tishana's Tidebinder, the blue flash creature that inactivates a permanent, and they can play a Disfigure perhaps, usually in the sideboard, Sink into Stupor. They have a couple of cards, but usually Meddling Mage and Kozilek's command can be quite efficient also against the Eldrazi deck. And actually that's pretty interesting. I was thinking that Test of Talent is really well positioned, so I've been playing 2, 3, 4 copies of this card. It's like Counterspell for instant sorceries, which with a built-in surgical effect, or extraction effect, if you want to call it that. And I really like that, but then I realized Meddling Mage does almost exactly the same thing. Like this is a permanent answer to Show and Tell, but so is Meddling Mage. And the problem with Test of Talents is that the combo decks are usually prepared to answer counterspells, so they're not going to go off unless they have an answer to a counterspell usually. So but they have more difficulty in answering a permanent, so Meddling Mage is more reliable. So I kind of would like to play a mix of them because I think this is just such a high power spell. And I think in every matchup there is some instant you want to target. Like in the Death and Taxes matchup, there's only one. And in many of the Cloud Post Turbo Forge decks, there's only one, which is Kozilek's command, but it's really good to be able to counter it. In Death and Taxes, you can counter Social Plowshares or Thoughtseize. And then you have and that's the matchups where it's bad, and you can still always find a good target for it. And you get to extract all the other copies of it. So like if you answer Social Plowshares from Death and Taxes, you really stifle their ability to interact with your creatures. And similarly, if you get the Kozilek's command, you also make it very difficult for the opponent to dig deeper for the next threat and to answer your permanents in play. So you can, if you manage to, it also helps you put the Hate Bear into play and protect it. Like all the answers to the Hate Bears are usually instants or sorceries, so you can just take it and extract all of them, so they are left without any interaction perhaps, because usually the combo decks don't play a lot of answers, and maybe they pick the best one and play several of it. And if you're playing as Blue-Black Tempo, you can get the Fatal Push, which is also really good to get rid of all of them. Makes it difficult for them to stop you. But also against all the cantrips deck, just taking a Brainstorm or Ponder is also really nice. Yeah, like your opponent is left in top deck mode, they can't dig for the cards they need. It's also really good. Although it's a bit expensive, I think the upside of the effect makes it worth it. Although I never so far in the last 10 leagues or so managed to counter a Doomsday or a Show and Tell. Like they always had the Force of Will back up. It's never an irrelevant card, basically. Yeah, so I talked a lot about Test of Talents, which is perhaps not the most important thing here. Anyway, the problem with this deck is that it's pretty much a 50% deck. Like, it's a reactive deck in a proactive metagame. Like, I think they should ban Tamiyo, the One Ring, just like they banned Nadu for the same reasons. Like, when you have cards that are payoffs that are so good that the payoffs are so good that you're kind of at a strategic disadvantage if you don't play them. Like, if you can choose between playing 4 copies of the One Ring or 4 copies of Force of Will, like you're always going to win if you have if you're playing the deck with a threat in it, the big threat. And there's really not a lot that can balance that. Like, Up the Beanstalk is a similar card, although this deck doesn't leverage it that well. I mean, I have a couple of cards here that can let me draw. But and Yorion, it's a Yorion deck, right? So when you cast Yorion, you get 2 triggers out of it. So first you get the first trigger when you cast it, and then when you cast the Yorion, you get 1 trigger when you cast it and 1 trigger when you flicker it. So every Up the Beanstalk draws 2 extra cards with your Yorion. So you kind of don't need any other interaction than Yorion to get a lot of value out of the Beanstalk. But then there's Philia to flicker it, and there's Solitude, Force of Will. Lorien Reveal, drawing 3 extra cards with a Beanstalk triggers is like, that's quite impressive card draw. And then there's Batterskull, which you can bounce and recast it if you really need to draw cards. I don't think I ever needed to do that. Like usually if you have a Batterskull, you just equip it to a creature and win from there. Yeah, so the problem is that this deck is reactive, and I think when you have a varied meta and when you haven't found the best hate cards, the best answers, then you're struggling to get struggling to get a high win percentage. So it's kind of a 50% deck. I was getting better win percentages just before the Nadu ban because I realized, or people in the other decks like Death and Taxes and Esper, they realized that Clarion Conqueror, the flying 3/3 that stops creature, planeswalker, and artifact abilities, it was really good against both Turboforge and Nadu decks. So I played 4 of those, and they were really good at stabilizing those matchups. So I had a pretty good win percentage then, I think. But now I haven't really found the card. I think Meddling Mage could be the new one. That's really good. So what I want to do is I want to consider if there's some change I can do to get a bit more, to raise the ceiling of the deck. Like, is there some more impactful spell I can make that helps me take control in matchups that are difficult? Like if I'm playing against the One Ring Karn deck, is there something I can play to, like, after I Thoughtseized and forced and maybe removed some permanently played, is there something I can do to win quickly from there? And I think that the ideas I'm having was, actually first I was thinking like maybe I should try Natural Order. Like I can cut the Stoneforge package that's about 8 cards, and put in, I think I put in 4 Natural Orders first, Atraxa, Alpha Deathclaw, Titania. Yeah, so Atraxa, you know this, like if your opponent doesn't have Karakas or Swords to Plowshares, it's a really good clock, and gaining your life at the same time, and it also refills your hand, so I feel like that's of course a self-explanatory, well-known target. And then there's Alpha Deathclaw, which destroys any permanent, and usually you're trying to get rid of something that the opponent is doing, so that's a pretty good effect. And then I was also playing 4 Green Sun Zeniths. If you Green Sun Zenith for this card, you can next turn use Monstrosity to make it a 10/10 and destroy another permanent. So I've figured, yeah, this is a good Nick Fit type of card. I was going to try that. Also, I like playing interactive decks that try to answer your opponent's threats. So I like that it's a removal win con. And Titania is really good because it lets you put a lot of creatures on the battlefield. And if you have Karakas, you can bounce her to get another land and 5/3 every turn. And I was thinking, like, if your opponent is trying to mess with your lands, if you get through a Natural Order, she also brings you back another land and 5 extra power at least. Yeah, so in order to help me cost Natural Order, I added 4 Green Sun Zeniths so that I can Green Sun Zenith for Dryad Arbor on turn 1. It lets me cost stock up from turn 2. So like a nice aspect of adding Green Sun Zeniths and Dryad Arbor and Birds of Paradises is that you can more easily cost stock up. It's kind of the same thing as if you're playing Ancient Tomb, right? And I think stock up is a really good card, of course. I don't think we need to discuss that. So you get somehow, you cut Stoneforge Mystic, which means you lose the 2-for-1, you lose the early interaction, you lose all the effects that are really valuable for grinding out games. But hopefully you gain a little bit of some easy wins, hopefully. That's what I'm hoping. And you add the ability to play stock up to grind opponents out. And we'll see if that's useful or not. I'm not sure. Like I think maybe I should cut the Spell Seekers and add more stock ups, but I haven't done that yet. So we'll see. That's for, I'm going to play a little bit with this and see what I feel like. But stock up is of course really good. And let's see. So yeah, this is one of the lists I want to play. It's nice because it's also nice that you're playing the card advantage, both getting Atraxa and getting stock up. Because that lets you play more discard, right? And discard is really valuable in creating a balanced matchup against everything, I mean, but especially against combo decks. So like discard, stock up, I like that combination of cards. You take the One Ring and then you stock up and look for another Force of Will or whatever you do. Yeah, so there's a small evolution I had there. Like I put in 1 Ice Steel Explorer because I figured if I have a Green Sun Zenith available, Ice Steel is a really powerful card to get. And you can just put out 2 fetches, fetch quickly, and go from 4 mana to 6 mana in the first turn after you played it. And that means you can suddenly start hardcasting the Natural Order targets. It also means you can start hardcasting Force of Will and you get to cost stock up. So I felt that was pretty good. Then I realized that like the problem with Natural Order is, of course, like if your opponent is playing Wasteland Days, Force of Will, it's really good, and Thoughtseize. It's really good to be able to. It's really difficult to be able to cast Natural Order, right? So in those games, I think Ice Steel Explorer is like the grindy Natural Order that doesn't require a 2-for-1 sacrifice. If this resolves, you just shit out lands and invalidate the opponent's mana denial strategy, and you also get to hardcast these threats. So, and also it kind of combos with the Titania. Yeah, that's one of the decks I want to try, the Natural Order package. Yeah, so I figured another way to finish games is if you have Vesuvan Drifter, which is like a show and tell on a creature. It's a flying 2/4, and you can look at the top card of your library. And when you attack, you can turn it into the top creature of your library. So if you have Emrakul on top, it means you get to clear the opponent's board pretty much and win from there. And then Worldly Tutor lets you put Emrakul on top, which is really nice. And the nice thing here is that Metamorphosis Fanatic, I played some leagues with that before, and it was a really fun card. Worldly Tutor, the disadvantage of Worldly Tutor is it's a card disadvantage spell. And it's kind of worth it, of course, if you have a Drifter in play and you get Emrakul. And this is how I expect to beat a Karn Ring decks, hopefully. But if your opponent plays a lot of removal and counter spells, like if they play a lot of removal, they may be able to answer your Drifter. So in those games, maybe you want to use Worldly Tutor to get Metamorphosis Fanatic. Because the Fanatic effect negates the card disadvantage from the Worldly Tutor. So you get the 4/4 lifelink for 2 mana and a reanimation spell. So you lose one when playing Worldly Tutor and you gain one when casting Metamorphosis Fanatic. And yeah, so that's kind of the experiment here. And I think it's actually pretty likely to be relevant, the Worldly Tutor Emrakul combo, also against fire decks, because usually they're going to be busy removing some of your other creatures perhaps, so you have a pretty fair chance of having a Vesuvan Drifter in play. Now the disadvantage of Drifter is that it doesn't provide any card advantage of itself, right? So it's not like a Barrow-Goyf that can turn the game around by itself. It needs some interaction. But we'll see if there's some upside to gain from that. Now what I'm kind of missing here in my deck building is I would like to have more ways to make the Drifter really good. Actually, the Generous Ant is pretty good. You get the flying 5/7 for 1 turn. But I kind of need something more powerful. I was thinking of Null Drifter. Null Drifter gives you flying 4/4, which you can cost it for 3 to draw 2 cards. But also it's a flying 4/4 with an Annihilator 1, so you would get 1 extra sacrifice effect out of the attack. Now, if someone has some suggestions on what could be good, you can comment on that, perhaps. Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what else I should play that has a good attack effect when it attacks. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot to choose from. It should be cards that I can cast, preferably. Yeah, I put in a Beanstalk here because it's pretty nice with the Fanatic. And the Generous Ants are there because they help with the mana base. And also you can sometimes get to 6 mana to cast them. And also it's a really nice extra target for the Fanatic. Because it discards itself, of course. So it's kind of a nice, fair synergy there. Yeah, so okay, I guess there's nothing else to comment on here, probably. And what else? Yeah, and here's a different list I've been playing before. It's basically a white, blue, red, green Beanstalk deck. I just think that having Fury being a 0 mana sweeper can be pretty good. Now, when you drop red, you lose a lot of relevant interaction against combo decks. You lose discard and Bowmasters. So I'm playing 3 Meddling Mages here to hopefully have a little bit of extra help against Show and Tell and Doomsday decks, for example. However, if you're playing against Show and Tell, it's really nice to have 4 Leyline Bindings in the main deck, I imagine. And with all the elementals, like there are 3 Solitudes, 4 Furies, 3 Omnaths. I like Omnaths because it pitches to everything. And also it's a pretty nice creature by itself, like you just draw a card and gain life, mana, and possibly damage, but that's not so easy to achieve here. But it's primarily a pitch spell that has some extra elemental synergy. So I'm playing 1 copy of Risen Reef, which I did in my last league as well, or 1 or 2 with this deck. I have a stream, I have some test games recorded with a white, blue, red, green elementals. Risen Reef replaces itself and lets all the elementals draw an extra card, right? Or actually put into play if it's a land. Also, this doesn't trigger Bowmasters, but I guess everything else here does, so I mean the Beanstalks do at least. Yeah, so you kind of have an advantage against Show and Tell decks, I hope. And the Endurances help you against fast reanimation spells decks, which aren't very common. The Beanstalks help you against control and fire decks. And then you have a lot of free interaction and cheap interaction, which I hope can be good. This list has 6 basics. because you need to, you often need duels to get more lands into play. But oh yeah, one more thing, I'm playing 2 copies of Broadside Bombardiers because all the pitch elementals give you like some extra speed in winning here. You can hit for 2 and then sacrifice these for 8 damage. How much is it? 7 damage, right? So you can probably win in 2 attacks. It's nice to have that extra clock, especially against ring decks. And also Leyline Binding does answer ring, so yeah, I feel like I haven't played them in a test games with this deck, and what I don't like about this deck is that it kind of builds itself. There's also Moloch, by the way, to get some more red mana, and also a card that you can cost it for 2 to answer Bowmaster, or for 5 to trigger the Beanstalk. Can potentially, I mean, there's so much board interaction here. Like you have the Fury Sweeper, can answer a flipped Tamio, perhaps. You have the Solitudes and Leyline Bindings and Swords, so you can answer Bowmasters, everything. Should be quite powerful against fair decks. And it has also some tricks against, like there's 1 extra, I'm playing 4 forces and 1 force of negation against the combo decks, in addition to the meddling mages. And 1 Lavinia, I'm not sure if she should be another meddling mage. I'm gonna try her, just see if I find her useful. I never found her very useful, but I haven't played her that much. I'm liking From the Ashes here too, to sweep the board when you're playing against the Cloudpost decks or Eldrazi decks. I think I should perhaps put in more Pyroblast, because that's a really nice thing to have when you're playing red, but I have so much removal anyway against those decks, right? So yeah, we'll see. I'll have to playtest this and do some tweaking. I think I'm going to start playing this deck, but I kind of want to try the Elemental route here, Elemental Beanstalk deck. I want to try a Fanatic Drifter deck to see if the Vesuvan Drifter combo works with Worldly Tutor, if I can grind. Isn't there one more? Yeah, and I want to try also the Nature Lorder deck. Yeah, so we'll see. I think I'll record those leagues in separate.